Tip number 1 for how to cut cardboard like a pro is to complete your cut. So I've got something right here, I've cut it out, and now when I want to try to punch this out to get my square out of here, if I haven't really completed the cut, when I'm trying to get it out of the cardboard, it's going to be kind of stuck on a couple of those edges that I didn't finish cutting, and then what it's going to do is it's going to leave some nasty little like hairs and things and burrs on the inside, and my piece might even be a little crumpled when I pull it out with extra little bits on the corners. Now this wasn't even a very bad scenario, I cut this out pretty well, but if you complete your cut, that means that when you're going around your square, don't worry about the arrows for now, we'll talk about those later, you want to make sure you're getting all the way to the edges, and if possible, perhaps I only wanted the square from the inside and the X was like over here, I didn't want any of the outside, I could overlap my cuts, so I'm cutting way down across the edges so my cuts overlap completely, and then it's super easy to get my part out without ripping at all. And of course, don't be afraid to make a second pass or even a third pass if you don't think you've cut all the way through. As always, a sharp knife is really going to help you do this, so I recommend replacing your blades whenever you can. But honestly, I'm a little bit of a cheapskate. These blades are kind of old. Tip number 2 for cutting cardboard like a pro is to pay attention to the direction of your cut. You can be cutting towards the edge or away from the edge when you're cutting like straight into a cardboard piece. Now, both of them work totally fine, but what I have found is that it's usually better to cut from the inside going out on your cardboard piece rather than the outside going in, because when you come in, you have a higher likelihood of crushing the cardboard, especially if you're doing some detail work, and then when you're coming out, you can precisely aim exactly where you want to start that cut and then move straight out to the edge of the cardboard, and it's all held together really nicely. Now, if we're doing some detail work, what's going to happen when we try to cut from the outside going in, especially when we're perpendicular to the grain like this, you can see that the grain waves are going this way, so it's really easy to crush the cardboard this way. We are going to have a high chance of just smushing it all together as we try to cut in. So I'm here, I'm sort of trying to work my way in, I'm carefully like sawing with my blade, trying to cut through the cardboard. Maybe I'll just do a light pass first, then I come in again with a thicker pass. There we have it. I gotta go again because I haven't cut all the way through, and remember, the tip is to always complete your cut. That was tip number 1. So now I have completed that cut, and you can't see it very well, but the tip is actually a little bit crushed in right there at the edge of the cardboard where I had to cut in. But if I'm cutting out, when I stick my blade into there, I can just pull it straight to the outside of the cardboard, and the thickness of the cardboard, the fact that I'm pulling instead of pushing on, is going to help keep it all together. Now, of course, I am facing a different direction in the grain. I peeled off this section so you can see that, but either way, there is still some stuff to watch out for. When you're pulling like this, you're kind of putting some tension as you pull, and on a thin, narrow object like this, it's possible that as you cut out, the cardboard's going to kind of waggle to the side or wiggle to the other side. And what that often causes is I'm not going to get a perfect point going all the way to the end of my triangle right here. So sometimes cutting in is easier, sometimes cutting towards the outside of the cardboard is easier, but either way, you pick whichever one is best for you. I prefer to try to cut out whenever I can, especially if I have some important stuff on the inside that I don't want to accidentally cut into as I'm moving the blade of my knife into the cardboard. Hey, if you're getting value out of this video, then consider smashing the like button and subscribing to the Maker Brain YouTube channel. That's this one right here. My name's Eli Tennant. I love helping you with cardboard projects just like this. Now let's get back into that how to cut cardboard like a pro content. Tip number 3 to cut cardboard like a pro is cutting out internal shapes. Now, how a pro would do it when they're cutting out internal shapes is they're going to try to make sure they don't accidentally cut into any of the area on the outside by like overlapping their cuts. So when you start your cut, you want to start it right near the edge, because the point of my blade is going to be the most exact, and right where I insert it, I don't have to worry about like my momentum carrying it too far, and I don't have to worry about the angle of the blade, because when I bring that knife all the way across to the other side, it's not punched through right now, but you can tell the blade is angled. So if I did punch through, then it's going to stick out like too far on the top and not enough on the bottom because the blade is angled. So what I recommend is taking your cut, you start at one spot, you're going to cut towards the other side, but before you get all the way there, just stop. And then turn that cardboard around and do a little cut in from the other side so that you can get a nice corner on that. And then we're going to repeat that for all 4 sides. When I'm doing this first cut, I'm not being too aggressive. I don't need to cut through all in one pass, and that's a bonus tip. Usually cutting in one pass isn't a good idea, especially when you're working on small detail like we were just doing. It can occasionally get you a cleaner cut because you have less chance for making mistakes or making shavings off the edges of your parts, but it also gives you a possibility of crushing your cardboard or just making some big mistake. Now, after that first pass around our internal shape, we haven't really gotten through the back, and that's something you want to do. You want to look at the front, but then look at the back, because the front's completely cut through, but the back still has a lot of open area that I need to cut through to get through that second layer of cardboard. If it helps, I've got arrows on the cardboard right here. The black arrows are showing you the way that I prefer to cut it, going from the corners in, and that's going to help you get sharper corners. If you go from the center to the outside, then you're going to get kind of slanty corners, and it's going to be really hard to cut all the way through on the back side of your corners because your blade is going to be tilted. So now I'm just going to go around with a second pass. Whenever you're cutting cardboard, something else you want to watch out for to make sure you don't start making a big ugly cut is getting little bits of cardboard stuck on the end of your knife. Sometimes the cardboard will be kind of tough and it'll like fold over and make a little blob on the end of your knife and then sort of rip through the rest of your cut. So just watch out for that, and that's another big reason to get sharp blades. I'm checking the back of that piece again, and it looks like I just got one more corner to finish up. Now I've got this piece almost cut out, and there's actually another tiny bit still stuck on there, and it'd be kind of hard to get from the other side. So what I'm going to do is just from the back of the cardboard do a little tiny cut and finish up that spot so I can easily pop my internal piece right out of the cardboard. I want you to remember that I'm just trying to equip you with tools to make your cardboard projects better, and you can really do it whatever way works best for you. So there's another way to cut close to the corners. When you get up close to a corner, you can tilt that knife almost straight up, and then that's going to give you a much cleaner cut towards the corner. It's harder to control when your blade is pointed like this, but you can see that now the edge of the blade is actually in a straight line, and it'll give you a straight cut. Normally we cut like this because that's a lot easier, but that would give you an angled part at the edge. Tip number 4. Use the right tool. You can use either like a big knife or a little knife. It's kind of up to you. I crafted with these utility knives for a long time, but they really work well for big cuts, especially straight lines, because the blade is so thick it's hard to curve with it. Or you can use a mini X-Acto knife just like this one. That's better for smaller stuff, of course, and cutting big stuff can be challenging because the blades actually might come out of their sockets because they're not attached super strongly, and your fingers will get tired of holding onto it. Or you can use scissors to trim the edges, the corners off of things. They're really good at that. Or making small cuts through your cardboard pieces, but with long cuts they tend to sort of crumple things. There is one more tool I want to mention that I don't actually own, and that is a serrated cardboard cutter, or I suppose you could use a serrated knife. And what that is a little bit of a safer tool, but really good at making long cuts, especially if you want like a big curve in something. It does make a rougher edge on the cardboard, of course, because it is a serrated tool, meaning it's got lots of little spikes on it, but I could see that really coming in handy if you were trying to make like a mini cardboard house and just needed to make some rough big cuts. Aside from cutting tools though, getting a cutting mat is a brilliant idea because it makes cuts easier and cleaner, and also a little bit safer because it's sort of soft in a way. So when you cut through the cardboard, you can feel when the knife goes into the cutting mat, and then it makes it easier to cut. It'll go faster than if you're cutting on top of like wood, and it won't crumple it like it will if you're cutting on carpet or something too soft. So there's a lot of advantages to having a cutting mat. This was a cheap one. I got links in the description below for all of these tools and extra blades, or some of the other things you might want that I mentioned in this video. But also, if you're looking for some of the tools that are really helpful when you're crafting with cardboard, I have a cardboard crafting starter tool guide linked right at the top of the description for you, and that has a bunch of tools that really just help you get into crafting with cardboard in a lot of different ways. And the best part is it is free. Free. Oh shoot. Tip number 5 is to pick the right kind of cardboard. This is something that often sort of slides under the radar, but it can really help you when you're changing things up within the same project. For example, on this prop right here, I use thicker cardboard up at the end where it's going to get bashed around a lot more, and thinner cardboard for the details down here on the butt of the gun. But you can go even more extreme than that. There's little cardboard like this. It's called chipboard or cereal box cardboard, and this is really thin, good for details or small things, especially if you're gonna coat it in like resin and make yourself some hard shell cardboard. You've also got several styles of standard cardboard. They actually make really thin corrugated cardboard. I think this looks like a sort of middle type. It's not as thick as the stuff I used on the barrel or the very tip of that gun that I showed you, but they also make thinner stuff than this as well. And then you have your almighty double layer cardboard. I'm sure you've seen this before. They have a really thick layer on the top and then like a thinner layer on the bottom, so the corrugations kind of alternate and make it really stiff and strong in both directions. And there are even more details and types than that, so you can take a deep dive into this topic and figure out all the different types of cardboard by clicker tapping on the screen right here, where I share all about that in an in-depth video. Or you can invest in your cardboard crafting experience by getting a couple more tools for yourself by checking out the description down below. My name's Eli Tennant, this is Maker Brain, and God bless you. I hope to see you in another video.